Hello there. Hello, hello. And thank you so very much for anyone who's tuning in. May this resonate with you. I'm honored to be chatting with some SoCal pals and some dear mom friends of mine. And we've been sharing our journeys and our choices in this mommyhood journey. And I'm really excited because I've been dying to have this chit chat and a little hangout with my friend Kelly here, Kelly Meehan. Kelly Meehan is spirit baby medium, and she's a medical intuitive and she's a mentor. And I've been really excited to just pick her brain and see what she has to say. So, hi, Kelly. Thank you for
Hi,
playing.
Heidi. Yeah, thank you for having me. I love it. Yeah,
Well,
let's.
I always love our conversations, and they go so deep, and they can go so long. And I'm like, "Ooh, you want to come play with me online?" And you are so gung ho, so I appreciate that. So thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Well, and you're a mom, two boys. And what has your journey been like? I know that for a while there, you were like, "Nope, nope, nope, no kids," and then lo and behold.
Yeah, that was my journey. I think that when I never had the dream of becoming a mother as a child, like, little girls, but it has a lot to do with how I was born, very traumatically, and the parents that raised me, and the sensitive being that I was. It felt frightening, to be honest. And then I came to a point in my life, I'm considered an older mom. I realized that it would be unfair of me to be in so much fear of bringing children into my life, and what would that transformation be like. And I often joke that my firstborn broke my second chakra right open because it was intense. It was like healing such deep levels, and it was dark times. It wasn't like joy and like light, but I had to work through whatever that was. And then coming into, my firstborn bringing me really into spirit baby mediumship, and then moving into an invitation with my second was still a little nerve wracking, because there's so much energy, and there's so much stuff in my pregnancy personally, and yet he's here. He came through, yet again an older mom. Which is, I laugh and I say that because I support a lot of women that are in their 30s, 40s, even touching and over 50, to bring their children into this world. And there's not, I want to say there's not a lot of rules, but it really depends on the person. So yeah, that was much, a journey to bring
Yeah.
them here.
Yeah. Did you have a set plan of what you wanted to do with them? Were you like, I don't want them in schools, or I do want them in schools? Or I mean, like, did you think that far ahead of their
I
education
did.
journey?
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Like in the beginning, so my oldest is going to be 12 in 2 months. So I have 12 years of this journey. And then my little one is 6. And so I knew in the beginning, I told my husband, we talked about it, I was like, I really want to homeschool from the beginning. But we didn't, because he's like, well, there's this great Waldorf school, and this could be really good, and it's public. And so I was like, and then he's like, you're going to have our second, and maybe you can have time with the baby. And I thought, okay, I'll be open. And I just wanted, my oldest wasn't very verbal. So I wanted him to feel fully resourced. I don't want to just send him in and he can't like communicate the way others expect him to.
Yeah.
And so, and he needed more special, like I felt like bonding and connection with me more than the second, and they're so different. And so we let him go to school for a little bit. And it was great. It was, kindergarten was amazing, and Waldorf, and I met so many great moms and people, open-minded moms. It felt like it was more separate than the public system. But, and the big but is, it still is a public system. And the really big push was the pandemic into what our next, and I'm sure we were getting this a lot, right? It's like,
Yeah,
then,
that's kind of where it all flipped. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So it really just solidified what I wanted to do anyways.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
What did you do when that struck? So
Yeah.
your littlest was 4, 3 going on 4?
Oh my gosh, he was like 3. Yeah, he was such a baby still. He was just barely coming out of nursing. And
Aw.
so he was just being his free little spirit, and we didn't poison his mind with what was happening. And I met a lot of 3-year-olds, and my husband, working with enrichment and schools, is like, these 3-year-olds knew way too much of anxiousness and fear. And I
Oh,
was like, what is wrong with, like, you can't do that to a 3-year-old brain. Like, he didn't know what COVID was. He didn't know what masks were. He doesn't have to. That's not his level of process. And you know, yeah, that's such a big thing to me. And so, and then my older one, so yeah, we did Zoom school, right? Which
Okay.
everybody did, and it was a mess.
It
It
was a
was,
mess. Now that was from the same school he had been in
yeah,
that whole
because
time? Okay.
they didn't know online learning. They just didn't know.
Yeah.
And what I saw was, I saw my child not learning anything. And then I'm going, what am I wasting his time? He's playing with his toys under the table because they can't, they would take like 20 minutes just to figure out how to put the camera on, and I'm
Wow.
like, well, now it's done. Like
Yeah.
now school is done. And so, and, then they accepted the children back in, and they're like, oh, we want him to come back in. And I was just kind of like, what are the rules?
Yeah. Did they
And
have
oh
restrictions?
yeah, they had
They did it
restrictions.
all. Okay.
They had like, I think they had like, I didn't go back. I never went back to the school. I never went back
Mhm.
again. But what I heard was there was like, markers on the ground and stay in your box. And I just, in my heart, it was like, no, just no. Like you're not masking your child who needs to see the language of a face and the words of a mouth moving. And then I was like, and I didn't ever social distance my children. I didn't scare them. I didn't say in the supermarket or on the hiking trail, don't walk next to that person. People were like that, and I was just
People were
kind of
very,
like,
there's some still are. Yeah.
yeah. And I saw being who I am from the mediumistic and the medical intuitive perspective. I have a different level of view and consciousness of what was happening. And I really saw right away was the psychological damage. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is scary. And so my children, I was keeping them as free spirited as I can, as you would a child. And at that
Mhm.
age, and this was years ago, so my son was, what was he, like 8 or 9, maybe 9, 10, 11, 9. And so yeah, so then that was the big shift. And then we were kind of nervous at first.
Yeah.
We were like, me and my husband talked it out, and we're like, okay, yeah, we're not going to put him into a situation and create shame and stress. And then I really felt like he wouldn't learn anything. So then what am I doing?
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
And I know I'm not alone. I'm sure many others felt that way too,
Yeah.
right?
But what did you choose to do? Did you stick to, like, did you find an online curriculum? Did you do find other curriculums, or did you just scratch the curriculum and like, let's just have some life school right now?
I think that my husband would say I'm all about life school, but he really wanted to join a charter because
Okay.
he feels like, I want money. I want the money
That's
from
due
the,
to you.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so to
Owed
work
to
with,
you.
to play with, to use, and we got amazing tools and art supplies and music classes and different things. And we actually did in the beginning, and I think this is what you do. We bought all these curriculums and
Uh-huh.
didn't even really use any of them, really, like barely. Like, but do this, do that. We're like, okay, we're like, let them come in. And then it's funny because a dearest friend of mine who's a homeschool mom, she moved out of California to Montana, and she said, Kelly, the first year is just let it be whatever it needs to be. And that was
That's
the
right.
best
Yeah.
advice,
Yeah.
because you're scared. You're like, am I messing up? The system
Right.
is not good. But I've been ingrained in the system, right? So that's the
Right.
belief. And
That's
then
what
I'm
you
like,
know.
yeah. And then I'm going, but wait a minute, like, and then I'm just like, I was crying at times, like, am I doing this right? Am I failing? It was just really like, I didn't know, and I wanted the best. And then again, that first year is like, and then we just went right into it the second year, and the kids had a rhythm, and it was really beautiful. And I get to be with my children all the time in a way that's so intimate and so present, and that is amazing. And then we met so many other homeschool families, and people that say that homeschooling is kids could be antisocial is the biggest lie.
It's quite the opposite because you're told to
Total
sit and be
opposite.
quiet at your desk, whereas
Yeah.
homeschool, you're encouraged.
And we've been brainwashed into believing that, oh, it's antisocial. And yeah, I mean, yeah, if you live in the middle of the woods and there's nobody there, and you're homeschooling, yeah, there's not going to be any people. But that's the
Mhm.
choice that people have to make for their family and their children. And so
Mhm.
we live in the melting pot, the city of angels. And
Yeah.
so it's, we met so many open minded, freedom minded families, and it's amazing and awesome. And we love it. And homeschool children are very different. And I saw it before my kids were homeschooled, really. There's something, the way they connect with people, the way they talk to you, the way they take you in. And someone once told me it's because they're not used to, school kids are trained. They're trained to listen to authority. We're separate. and it's so deep. It's like deep in our consciousness that people won't even realize it. And so there's something about the openness and freedom. And yeah, and so we went from curriculum
Mhm.
to like doing projects and stuff. And I feel like my part is the art of creative hiking, nature director. My husband too, but he was doing more. He's very left brained. I'm right brained. So it's like he's doing more of the science, the math, and then we do some online stuff, and then we do some things out in the world. And so it's been amazing. And like once you're in a rhythm, it's great. Like, you know, we're fortunate because me and my husband are entrepreneurs, so we get to make our own schedule.
That's
And then we
so
get to
cool.
take
Yeah.
trips. Like, hey, let's go to the sequoias. Let's go to Joshua Tree. We could make it a whole school of learning. Everything is learning, and you can't do that when you're stuck to in the system. But I even feel it in my body energetically, like releasing systems. And I know that could be a controversial topic, like
It,
not just the school, the medical, financial, all of them. Like I'm tired of it. And I know my purpose and my tone of frequency is not meant to continue to conform. That's just not my purpose, as you know, as you too, Heidi. And that could look very irregular or chaotic at first, but
Mhm.
now we're gelling in more that our tones and frequency of what we're bringing is new earth energy. And you're either going to stay in a low frequency and you're going to dissolve because it's not going to be that, or you're going to just keep moving into the high spaces. And I have a lot of love and positivity for the future, even
Yeah.
though it's not, yeah, it's going to get ugly and chaotic and fearful. But if we're staying tuned in to like ourselves on a nervous system level, on a spiritual level, then it will be okay. We're okay.
Hmm. Hmm. That's it. That's it. And then if we're emulating that, our children are watching, and then they're going to emulate it, and there comes the next generation. That's how we flip it. So I love that they get to watch that. When you are always out and about, rain in the dark, you're hiking, like all of the things, and now you're got this small little obsession with fungi
I
and with
do.
all our beautiful rain. Are your kids following that? I noticed you did some homeschool projects around the mushrooms and
Yes.
everything. So,
So I
and you're a good
do.
cook. You're an amazing, amazing
Uh,
vegan baker, by the way, which is
self
tough.
Everything self study. Yeah. I mean, my vegan baking skills is a hobby, and I feel like I'm mastering it after years of just playing around in the kitchen. Like, and that's the thing about homeschooling and being a mother. Like, you get to play in the kitchen. I've done fermenting. I've done sprouting. It's just using even things from the land and the property, like what could I use and what is foraging like, and just yeah, to show our my children. And so my amateur mycology studies, I have taken my children out to learn about mushrooms and fungi as well. And I got names now. I'm getting more names now, which is cool. But right now, where we're living, I'm up in the mountains, but even around probably where you are too, there's so much fungus right now because of the rain, and it's just beautiful. And so the kids, we do mushroom projects. We go out and we hunt for them. We're really observing and taking pictures at this point. But they find little tiny ones and like, look what I found, and they get so
Wow.
excited. They're so excited, and we find funky ones on trees, and some are gooey, and some are dry. And then I'm trying to I can ID a few of them, which is so exciting to me. And I even the other day looked up on my window where I do my work, and I saw a tiny little mushroom growing out of a rock, and I'm like, of course, they're speaking to me.
That's so
And we
cool.
did a spore project, which is a really fun project to do with children. You take a mushroom from outside and you get the cap, you put it down and cover it, and it leaves spores. It shows you
Oh,
the science of how spores are released. And
yeah.
and by the way, mushrooms are not dangerous to touch. Everybody has a very misconception. Every mushroom is poisonous. Get away.
Yeah.
And I always say there's three kinds. There's edible, non-edible, and poisonous. And so I'm not telling you to go out there and eat them, but don't be
But
scared to touch
explore.
them, to feel them, to smell them. It's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do a lot of nature stuff. We just did a honeybee project, and we did a nest project. And this month, I believe we're going to do ocean. We're going to learn about the water. So I'm a very kinesthetic, visual learner. So that's how I teach.
Oh, that's
My
so cool.
strength isn't auditory. That's my husband's strength. So if we're going to do something like the ocean, it's visual, we're going to touch the water, maybe we'll, do some specimens and then we can write about it. Or I'm really big into text to writing as well,
Hmm.
especially with the way I learn. And my older one, we learn very differently. And so, but I make it, or sometimes we're eating something. We did a project about seaweed and salts of the ocean. So you're getting this whole experience with it, not just like you said, I'm sitting here
Memorized. Yeah.
and learning. You know how bad that is for a non-auditory learner over here through school? I was labeled as like a million learning disabilities because I'm like, I'm supposed to sit in a desk and listen, right?
Oh,
But
just
I'm like,
memorize, memorize, memorize. Yeah.
yeah, and that's what I did. I memorized. But then I was like, what about my creative, my visual? What is the story I bring? And I love that our children are also different and the story they share about like things that we learn. Like everyone has a different experience with learning. And
Hmm.
so
And we're all creator beings. So when that gets shut down in the regular school system, and put in a box, there goes the little light for our little star seeds.
yeah,
It gets dimmer and dimmer. It's so sad.
it's
But
true. Yeah.
on that note, though, like even the mushrooms and everything, that could be like at a private school, a whole learning block. And
Yeah.
here you are with your kids and the social groups that you go to, because you're tied to a lot of different social groups. It's like it's what's called all sensory learning.
Mhm.
And what could be like a 20-minute thing is like a 2-week learning block in school
Yeah.
system. That's what's so amazing. You're soaking in so much more information, I think, than you would in a regular classroom.
Oh, absolutely. The whole outdoor learning, and we even did a whole thing on rock hounding. Like I learned that there's these, jasper and crystals and all along Southern California, if you go more east. And we found all the sites and we brought our little hammers out and we were like, yeah, this is homeschooling. We're going out
Oh,
there learning about geology, learning about the nature. We're going to do a project about weather, just really like life skills and, the math, that we're so forced into and all the writing, it comes.
it'll come with
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, like you don't have to sit there and my firstborn, his learning, he doesn't want to sit there and like write things. He wants to get involved. As we did sword making, he built like foam costume. He wants to get in there with his hands. Whereas my second born, and this is my first one is Rain, my second one is Forrest, and Forrest, my second born, he likes to sit there and listen. He likes to take it in. So I know he's such a little sweet, like everyone's like he's such a little gnome and sweet spirited being, and so he has a different way of learning, and it's I'm realizing as we do with our children, it's like, oh, how am I meeting their learning needs at this time, and it changes, and we really love the homeschool energy and vibe of it. And my older one's like doesn't never he's like, I don't ever want to go to public school, which is good. I was like, okay, this is
Well,
gonna work.
he's actually, and he's had a taste of both, so he can
Yes.
kind of see and
Because some kids
compare.
want to go back. We have a friend who's like, "Oh, I want to go back," and for
Mhm.
whatever reason, but it's kind of like, I really love like we get to create our own day. We get to sleep.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing I love
Yeah,
about, yeah, the sleep is huge. And you still have a schedule, a routine.
yeah,
Like I remember talking to you about this, and you're like, well, that morning we're doing school, and this morning, this is what our routine. And it's still important to give a child rhythm and routine and whatnot, but you have the freedom to pivot and
yeah.
shift and let life unfold and happen without the stress.
Because sometimes the kids may feel maybe they have a cold or
Mhm.
maybe it's hot out, or sometimes I'm like, all right, we're just going to get a blanket and bring the schoolwork outside under a tree. Or, oh, I could tell they need to go for a hike, or we have a creek by our property. So it's like, let's go get some of that energy going, or let's go play with some sports, or let's go to the library. Let's go get some books And so I really like that too. It's like there is a newness each week because there's 1 or 2 days a week where I feel like it's more open. Like after we're kind of done doing whatever our projects are, it's like, oh, we have like, hey, you want to go skate, you want to go to the ocean, like we get to play around with that and not be like, oh, it has to be this. And I remember when my son was in school, it was very stressful, got to be there before the bell rings, and then
Yeah,
you're like driving down the 101 like, oh crap, like you just got to be there. And then I felt like we were sick more, which would
oh,
make sense. Oh
makes
yeah,
a lot of sense.
colds and sore throats and just always something. I was all like tense in my body. And then now I'm like, oh, I my kids are like never sick now because I feel like it's stress.
A
Stress
lot
makes
to
you
do.
sick.
Yeah.
And when
Yeah.
you're in a routine and pushing, I have friends that go to public school and all they ever talk about is their kids are sick all the time. And I'm like, wow, okay. And we're
Mhm.
social. We hang out with a lot of people. There's kids that have colds and they're all rubbing all over each other, but we're also outdoors in the sun.
Mhm.
And
Your
I
immunity's high, you'll be good. Yeah.
yeah, and I feel like it's all about stress. So when my kids do get sick, they get a little sick. They're not like full on like knocked out. It's just kind of like, oh, but I do really feel like it's stress and sleep and rest and I'm hungry. Okay, go eat. I got to go to the bathroom. Okay, there's no like you have to like raise your hand. You can't go to the bathroom. You can't eat now. It's like, okay, this is what I hope for schooling for all children, not to be stressed out and like have to get it done, or I just got to get it done. I got to
Yeah.
get the answers, like you said, memorization. I just got to get it done. But then what are you learning?
Yeah.
Like,
They're empowered. Do you
yeah.
know what Charlie just went through? So she did go down. They both went down with sickness the last week of school because the bug floated around the center, and everyone with all their different modalities and stuff, but no one was really taking the time to rest because it's the end of
Yeah.
the year. We got to
Yeah.
push. So they were like out. I'm like, fine. So she missed her midterm, and she's never had that at school, and they've never really done that. So she was able, it was all open book in school. The teacher had her, she brought it home. So she set up herself open book. And then I was kind of just peeking, reading these questions. And it's literally just to expand their mind. Like, tell
Mhm.
me your thoughts on this lesson. How did it make, like, I was near tears.
Wow.
I'm like, because it's not going to be graded and she's not going to be put
Mhm.
in a line in the classroom. It's a sixth, seventh, eighth emergence, full immersive class. And she just wants to see where you at. So it wasn't like the stress wasn't there, but there was like an excitement of, I'm going to show her how much I did learn about this. And,
Mhm.
it was just very cleverly done. And I was thinking back to my old days, like the scantrons and the memorizing, and this is going to be on the test, memorize this bit. And it's like, none of that soaks
I
in.
was gonna say,
I,
what did you learn?
I don't remember any of it.
That's
I
what I'm
remember what
saying.
I wore, who was good, nice to me, who I was nice to. Like that's what the school lunches. Like I remembered that kind of stuff. But the stress of the memorization was like in the moment and then it's over and it's gone. And but sure, with Charlie, she's immersive now. She's
Mm.
all into it. And I just got a notification for Huck's class because it's an outdoor classroom and we
Mhm.
have the rain coming up. So it's just a reminder,
Oh,
bring your tea mug and
I
things like
love
that.
that.
And they're protected, but it is still half outside. And she goes, we're starting woodworking. And I'm like,
Oh,
yes,
wow.
like
Yes.
hands-on things that I do
So
not
cool.
understand and I'm not able to teach. But
Yeah.
I'm just giddy because their hands, all their senses are engaged. And the way these teachers are navigating their heart space is very stress-free.
Mhm.
And I think that's everything. And I know like we're so far away, it's not for everybody, but I do feel like this is kind of how the pods and
Mhm.
some of this new earth conscious parenting is really keeping the child's mind body will intact. Do you find that?
I
Or you
love
see?
that. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I love that you have that heart-centered teachers, and I do see that vision for the future, small, intimate. I'm all big into being intimate connections. Even with the work that I do with my clients, it's very intimate because when we're really vulnerable and connecting, we could be real. And we don't have to be stressed or like, holding a future of disease and cancer, which is so freaking rampant right now. And it's hard because the foundations we come from are so stressful and we don't even realize it. And
Mhm.
so I do see like, you're getting me excited because yeah, there's the vision is unlimited and this more smaller kind of working, whether it's nature or science, it's like, yeah. And I do feel like the pandemic, which I know was very intense for many for the world, but at the same level, we can be alchemists and make something really beautiful and powerful from it, which we have. And
Mhm.
right now, I know in our area and in the LA County area that homeschooling is like skyrocketed by like all kinds of people that
Mhm.
have their own reasons. It's not just one thing or another, which is really great because
Mhm.
then it just shows you like it's acceptable now. Do you know what I'm
It's
saying?
acceptable and
Yeah.
it's limitless. So
Yeah.
then their creative juices are starting to go, and it's not so scary anymore, I think, too.
Yes.
Because that old image of, well, it's all on you, it's, you
And you
can reach
can't
for
you know
mentors.
and like
Mhm.
I said, you can meet I know because I really tune into people energetically, but when I meet people I'm like I could tell what children are homeschooled most of the time But I also know that like my children are out in the world and they meet people all the time and people are like, "Hey, what school do you go to?" And my older one's like, "I'm homeschooled." Like he's so proud of it. And they're like,
Oh,
"Oh," and like nobody's like, "Oh, that's not, that's weird or that's," and they're just kind of like, "Oh, okay." And you know, I'm like, "Yeah, that's how that works." I don't have to defend the education. I actually said to someone the other day, I'm like, "Oh, are you unschooling?" And he's like, "No, no, no." And I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, it wasn't a judgment, but I think he had whatever issues that in his reality and the way he was teaching his children, that was a big deal. And I'm like, there's so many ways to school people. Like, I'm not going to say you should school your child my way because each child is different. Where again, my firstborn, I think he's a very kinesthetic learner. My secondborn is very auditory learner. So I'm going, oh, let me meet them from where they're at. And they'll get a little bit of everything, of course. But like you said before, it was really important is we're asking children questions, right? Like about their experience with learning instead of like, all right, get the numbers, get this. It's like,
right.
what is this about? What is like telling stories about our experiences with learning? And then we did a bee project for like a month, which was great. We made a paper mache beehive.
That's
I
so
even found little wooden bees we stuck on there. We painted it, and I was like, I don't know. And we're all like, I don't know if this is gonna work. And we put a balloon in there, and we were like having fun, getting all the flour and water. And then we painted it. It looks really cool. I wish I had it. I'd show you. And then
cool.
we made like honeycombs with like other things. And then we had these gorgeous books. And then we went out into the world and found wasps' nests, and we saw honey, and we talked about the bees. And then there's a bee place at the end in Chatsworth and Topanga, they sell bee supplies and they talk to you about the bees there. And so we had like, it's like indoor with the books, the hands on, the art. We went out into the field because I want my
So
children. We
important.
went to the store with other professionals and then we ate the honey. And my thing is, I learned about bees. I had no idea they're very vibrational creatures. When they speak to each other, they do certain things
Oh,
in certain rhythm.
frequency,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
And honeybees are not scary. I know that's why we did the project. People are so scared. Honeybees do not want to sting you. That's not their goal.
That's
They
their goal, right?
yeah, they sting you, they die. Why would they do
Mhm.
that? And
Mhm.
so they're very sweet creature. They're yeah, the other wasp family, they're a bit more vicious, but we get to learn that not all bees are the same. But just being able to go out in the world and learn and then come back to that without grades or rules or I mean it just feels so amazing to me and
It's
you
so
know
expansive for the kids. They have room to grow and the power to do so on their own
yeah.
terms. And then it probably sinks in more too.
Oh yeah, because then we're learning about bees for like a month, not just like, oh, you got to get it done, and this
Yeah.
is what it's like, and we could come back to it even. Like I'm learning like how this works too. I'm like, oh, like we don't just, I'm schooled, right?
Yeah.
So, oh, we don't just do this and that, and then it's moving on. I was like, oh, we could come back to it, or I even talk about like I've said to my older child who's a lot like me with learning. I said, I know you don't want to do this, but the world needs you to learn letters and language in a certain way because, and I literally sat with him, put my arm around him. And then I like touched his face and I told him this, and I literally felt his body like, whoop, like
Mm.
relax and open and realize that there are some things in education that we will not like, but we have to do it because the world says, hey, you have to learn a language. You do, you really do. And so let's say you have to go and read your receipt or it's like you have to there's some things with numbers and letters you don't have to be an algebra teacher
Yeah, yeah.
but just learning as you go there's so many different ways we can teach certain things especially with numbers but even letters and I can really feel it was such a really beautiful moment to me because I could feel his energy just it felt receptive it wasn't like you have to do this because that's I feel like I didn't get a lot of direction it was like do this just to do it but you're like why
Hmm.
like there was no because the why couldn't be answered because I don't know because everybody else does it like no and so I'm
Hmm.
like this we're doing this because this is and I could just again I feel like then what I'm doing is I'm listening to his struggle of learning but also going okay I'm going to try and do my best and we'll see what comes and I said you don't have to have it all figured out right now this is why we're learning it's like over time and then again we meet the needs of each child and where they're at is important and I'm sure it's going to change with my boys like I'm sure but number one I'll never fail is in nature
Right? That's
we never
everything.
hiking up the the canyon going to the creek that like anything with nature they're so ready for it's like
That's so
maybe,
sweet.
yeah, they're like, let's do this, ready to go. And
Yeah.
it is very fun, and it is very exciting.
Yeah. I try so hard, to live in the present moment, but I'm currently trying to manifest or see what it's going to be like. My next step is like my daughter going into high schools. So I'm like, public's not an option. And so I'm like, what will that look like? And then I'm constantly get drawn back to when even you brought up about being a mentor. I'm like, perhaps it's the mentorships and, they're really honing in on their skill sets, but they check in with mentors
I
to
love
develop
that.
skill sets. Like, doesn't have to be what it was before. So I'm like, well, what do I want it to look like, or what's best for her? And you also taught me about, and it really shifted our relationship and her as a person, is the nervous system. And that's everything. And so I really trying to make my moves with that in mind, like with her keeping it intact and in mind. And so that's my next big vision. Do you have any visions of like what's to come for your kids, or you're just gonna keep navigating as you are and let it unfold, or do you have like a plan in place?
We have no plan. I can't work with too much of structure and plan, but I love what you just said, and I want to talk about that as the
Yeah.
mentor.
Yeah.
And I just when you said that, I was like, because you would be a mentor to our empathic,
I,
psychic
I would
children.
feel it. But when you said it at
Yeah,
the lake and you brought it up about specifically working with teenagers, I was just like, boom. I was like, that's it. And I would only entrust my daughter with you, like as a mentor. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's on something. And then it started creating. I'm like, yes, that's okay. This is going to be okay. Manifest, manifest. Keep
I
going.
know. As you say that, I had this feeling of like, oh look, me and Heidi and maybe another group, we're mentors to children in different ways, and I do think about that time with Charlie, because she's a very special energy to me, and I could see her, and I'm like, wow, I'd love to work with children on that level, and I'm putting that out, like you said, that creative energy, because I met this little boy the other day, and this is a good story, at the farmers market. And I'm like looking at the little dips. I'm a dip person. I'm like, ooh, yogurt dip, olive dip, and I couldn't read it. I was kind of like pulling at it, and then he literally comes next to me, his arms like practically touching me, and I just felt his presence, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this little boy's an empath, so beautiful, and he's like 12 years old, really on the tall side, really long wavy hair, and I just said, yeah, I can't read that. I joked, oh, my eyes aren't really, and then he just starts reading it to me like he knew me.
Oh,
And then I turned to his mom and behind me, and I says, wow, I said, and I just said it like, and sometimes I just say things, sometimes I just keep it in. I said, wow, he's so empathic. He's such a feeler. He's so sensitive. And she was like, oh. And I said, and he walked away, and I started talking about him, and she looked at me like, how do you know this about my kid? And I says, he's very unique. These are the children we need to see, the sensitive ones, especially boys, and he's in his public school system. I go, but you got to make sure you keep that energy of who he is there. Don't let it get polluted or stressed. And then I said, and I said to her, it's kind of my profession. And then she's like, can I have a business card? And I'm all like, I don't have a business card. I says, well, I kind of work with babies and stuff, but I do have that. After talking with you, Heidi, I feel it in my heart, and I've seen it with other teens. Is like, I want to be that mentor, because I know what it's like to be an empath. I know what it's like to have the emotional energy there, but how to then feel into the nervous system. There are nervous system things children can do to feel a sense of ground in a sensitive world, because I do feel like there's a purpose. And so yeah, this mother, we were so, she was just, for me, like to see this little boy was just so obvious. I'm like, how does no one else see that? Like, it didn't take any energy for me to see that he has a beautiful, soft, empathic energy. And the mom was just so shocked. And I said, there are children that have, and actually then she started to share with me. Now I'm remembering too. She said, well, he does have these experiences about seeing things around the future and feeling around people. And I'm like, here it comes. It's like, I'm like,
well,
yeah, I'm like, and wouldn't it be nice to mentor um, these children? Heidi will create a group, the mentor of children of star seeds, and we'll all step forward and be like, okay. And I do feel like just not one-on-one, but even group work, getting our
mhm.
empathic children together. And of course, there's different levels, because children that are highly empathic, that are struggling, oh, they need to, like, yeah, they need more support. They need to feel their connection. And I always think it's beautiful. Like, I know for me, like when I was young, I was calling that mentor, and I was like, where are you? And then in my
Oh,
20s, yeah, my 20s, I met this amazing woman who was I didn't know it at the time, was clairvoyant, clairsentient, clairaudient, and we really connected. And I felt like she helped me heal, and she made me feel like I wasn't alone.
Mm.
This empath dropped in the middle of a sea of non-empaths. I'm like, what the heck, right? And then that's why I added mentor to my experiences, because I want to be the mentor for not just moms and babies, but mentoring for our children. And that is the next project. I don't know, like you, like how it will unfold,
Right.
but it's there, and I
Mhm.
want to be of service there. And I just love talking to this little boy. I love talking to Charlie. Like, it's just magical to me because, again, I feel like I see them. I see them,
Oh.
and I want them to not feel like, yeah, the world's hard at times, but where's your
Mhm.
center? Where's your ground? It's
Yeah.
okay, you
Yeah.
know? And so,
Oh,
yeah.
that was so fun. And just having that spark of that connection, I could see it within her because she had to navigate a lot of shit. Like
Mm,
the dad abandoning and then her growing into this woman's body before the brain's ready. Like I was even watching it. I'm like, why is this? Why did she get another obstacle? Like, come on. But she
mm,
handled it like a boss. But it is, that was very difficult to watch her be uncomfortable in her own skin. So all those little things. And sometimes you don't want to. I mean, I want them to be able to come to their mom for everything, but to have a mentor, to have someone that they feel that confidence to just talk. I remember watching at the lake and she just unfolded and was talking. And I'm
yeah.
like, I
Wow.
didn't do the, well, she doesn't talk to me. I was
Yeah.
just like, I was just like, thank you. I'm like, thank you for bringing
Mhm.
Kelly into our family.
Oh,
Like, because it was like, I
yeah.
want her to be able to do these things. And now I'm like, that's just one child. Imagine how many teens and children out there that just want someone to talk to that without to be able to fully express themselves because there are still some boundaries they feel they have with their parent. They don't want to maybe fully
Yeah.
unleash it all for whatever that
Something,
needs to be worked through.
yeah, something you say makes me, it's funny because years ago, before the spirit baby work really gelled in, I worked with infants and infant development therapists and 0 to 3, and I go into a lot of homes. And I remember one of my internships I did, the therapists were like, "Why are the children talking to you?" And they're like, because they were trying to make them play with them. And I
Okay.
just, and I'm like, you don't do that. I said, I just showed up with my energy and I'm just playing next to them. And then they would just start playing with me. And they were like trying to watch me and figure it out. But what they didn't realize is that I was telepathic with the children.
Mm.
But you can't say that with a bunch of psychoanalysts.
I know, right?
They don't really, you can't, they're the language, but they were like, oh, like Kelly's onto something. And they thought probably it was psychoanalytical. But what they didn't realize, it was pure telepathy and psychology.
Aw.
And
Aw.
but I was like, I was very like, I'm just not expecting anything. Children
Aw.
feel our expectation from them and the need. So when we have a need that can be repulsed or pushed back, it's
Yeah,
like, can we show up? And it's hard with our own children because there's
I
so
know.
much. There are little hearts walking
I
around in the
know.
world,
I'll
and we
walk
want
in and
to,
I can
yeah,
sense her get anxious, and I'm like, oh gosh, I'm probably because I'm worried. I'm like, you're gonna be cold or
yeah,
this or your poor skin. We gotta fit, and I'm like, I
yeah,
just relax. So I have a lot of work to
yeah.
do in that sense.
We do as parents for sure. If
Mhm.
our nervous system is in dysregulation, and I know that's a whole other topic, our children are going to be dysregulated. But
Yeah.
here's the thing: they can come back into regulation. Because I was born and raised by a dysregulated nervous system mother, and I'm not going to pretend that I had a good life around it. No, I was sick a lot, and so it was very hard and into adulthood. And so, but I learned to re-regulate, and especially for my children, I do not want my children to have feel unsafe as I did in my body
Mhm.
because I'm not regulated enough, because there's trauma. It's all old trauma.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so, and then you're talking about your foundation of having the relationship with a strange, with father. That's a lot of energy that will
Oh
sit
my
with.
gosh, their early childhood was just
Oh
trauma,
yeah.
trauma after
Well,
trauma, and then I was gone
yeah.
mentally and physically with work. Like it was, we're still trying to regulate that
And that's
early
fine.
childhood stuff. Yeah.
That's what I mean, and that's what's amazing that you're doing, because look, my mom could never regulate me into, it's like I was left just like in the open of no boundaries and nothing. It was frightening. And
Oh,
so we get to have conscious parents, and that, oh, and I think that's probably why I do the work I do on a deep subconscious level. Because what am
I
I
feel
doing,
that
right?
too.
Right?
Yeah.
Because
Mhm.
I sit back, I'm coming up to 10 years in this work, working with thousands of people, and I'm going, Yeah, there's something about my foundation, and maybe I was in like like denial, or it was kind of suppressed. But I talk so freely about it. I was like, you know what? Sometimes we're born traumatically through traumatic people, and then we have to heal, and then we have to be there for each other, and it's okay.
And
And to
that's
tell
that
our
work.
stories, yeah,
That's your work. You were given that lifetime to figure this out and now share and flip it. That's what's so
absolutely.
cool. Uh,
Alchemists. I feel like we're all alchemists in our own inner
yes.
story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Magic right there. There's a good learning block. Just the power of alchemy. That's so
Mhm.
cool. I love that. Do you want to share any of Spirit Baby Medium? Or actually, maybe we can do that for a whole nother episode. But
It's up to
I
you.
do love
Whatever.
what
Yeah,
I
whatever
love.
you're.
You have your own podcast. You've had
Okay, yeah.
for a
So
while
here,
now,
yeah.
right?
So here, I'll give you a little clip. so so I do have a podcast called Spirit Baby Radio, over 150 episodes. I have a journal. It's called Sacred Communication, a Spirit Baby journal. I also have Spirit Baby Oracle cards, decks for conception, pregnancy, and birth loss. And so that's the areas that I really work in. So I work in a lot of conception. It's my biggest area. I work in pregnancy too, and birth loss. So a lot of like miscarriage, stillbirth, infancy loss. I run groups. I have online programs. I opened up a school last year called the Spirit Baby Academy. And this is with somebody that I grew up in a school system that told me I was never going to be anything. And I'm not joking. They were like, "You're just not smart enough." I wanted to be a doctor. Nope, you're not smart. I was never smart enough. And so my non-smart mind created a whole business that didn't really exist. And I'm writing a book now. And I've been on multiple podcasts, and I've worked with big people. I've been on their shows and things. And so I'm going, huh, and maybe some would say, well, maybe the school system, I could have turned in a bad direction and been sick and in jail, right? Because that's what happens when
Yeah.
you have
And then
learning
be the
problems.
victim. You're just a
Yeah.
victimhood for yeah.
Instead, I was like, okay, after my son, I was like, what do I want to do? I'm very good at caretaking. I'm very good at reading energy. And I was scared. And I just built the work, and I just showed up for it, made some mistakes. And then I say mistakes is because in a business as an entrepreneur, you take risks. You don't know where it's going. And then you get excited. Like now I'm excited. I'm like, what's the next business plan? Like, and right now I'm still doing a lot of the work in the Spirit Baby, but I love the energetic. And I'm doing light therapy now outside of that, which we talked about, stem cell technology of healing. And I'm like, this
Love
is
that.
fun. Let me see
You've
where
been
it goes.
feeling good, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
You're feeling
excellent.
great.
So then I'm
Yeah.
like, what can I do? Like and then my older son says he wants to be an entrepreneur. So yeah. And so I'm like, whatever you want. I've never held my children. You could be a plumber, a dentist, a gardener. You could do whatever you want to do. But we don't talk about careers someday because that feels like, but it's like, do what makes you happy, and, these YouTubers, shelter the homeless, like, it doesn't matter. We are in a time of creativity, and that would be my 2023 prediction is that if I had one, is that we need to just harness our own individual connection to creativity is so important and crucial, I feel like, for New World. Not how the other person's doing it, not how that person's doing it, like where is your own creative force, your spark of existence? That is what we want to continue to anchor in, and for our children. And I
Mhm.
know maybe your children do this too. My children help me be creative as well. Yeah.
Always. They really teach me every day to be my best self. They
Yeah.
do. And they activated me, from the beginning.
Yes, I know. Remember I said I got the second chakra broke open. I know it sounds dramatic, but it really felt dramatic.
Oh, oh. Yeah, there are littlest teachers
Yeah,
and healers and all of
absolutely.
it. Well, all the stuff you listed, they all can be found in your link tree. There's your link tree.
Mhm.
And now that you remember it, I mean,
I know. We talked about earlier. I'm like, what is that? I was like, oh yeah, that's
well, you're so busy. You're so out there. Yeah, you have several banners and
so
several
many things
stuff
happening.
happening. But I really honor and I appreciate your approach to how you've been handling motherhood and being a wife. Your relationship with your hubby, he's just, I think, the
Mhm.
biggest sweet pea.
Mhm.
And he's really into the physical too, right? He was doing a kids gym and all that kind
Well,
of
he
stuff.
does
Like,
enrichment. He initially his company he created years ago, and see, I'm the creative. Most of the females I feel like are creative, intuitive muses, and he's like, I want to do this. I'm like, go do it, do the business. And so he created his own enrichment, and initially it was Gymnastics Factory because he has a gymnast background, And now it's the enrichment factory because he's great at teaching science, Lego building. He did circus. So here's the fun thing: when the pandemic hit, we pulled out, we couldn't go anywhere. We pulled out all the circus toys and we're like, like flipping balls and plates, even plates. Like
Yes.
like in the yard. It was like, and then I was like, my husband, like, oh wow. I'm like, you're really good at circus. I'm like, if you like a clown in there because he's very good at that. But
He's
yeah, and
good at all
so
that stuff.
yeah, so now he has a lot of contracts, and the buzzword gets around about the way he teaches, and his personality. He's very
The best.
outgoing, and he jokes, and and the kids really love him. And
Yes.
so we get to we get to create these our place in the world through financial living in this
Yeah.
way. And so I always walk into the healing room. It's here, and you can see in the background my pictures. Those are from my book.
Okay.
Is that like, all right, I'm going to work. Don't knock on that door. Like, but it's literally walking from one room to another. And I'm like, okay, this is great. Like,
It's peaceful.
yeah.
It's not
Oh, yeah.
stressful. You
No,
both
it's
also
good.
are very big way showers and great at bringing the people together. I
Yeah,
was lucky enough to go to one of the camping excursions you guys put on,
right.
and it was like 30 families or something intense and amazing. And it was the coolest, calmest, best thing ever. And I still kick myself in the butt for not catching the next one, but it's I know there'll be more coming up. But
There'll
yeah,
be
good
more, yeah.
ringleaders, like, come on everybody, and here's where this is, and here's where that is, and it's like
Yeah.
just
We
yep,
like
upbeat.
some people call us the mom and dad of people. Do you know what I mean? Like we do. Like a lot
I
of people throughout the years, like he's the dad, I'm the mom. What do you need? And we do. We're very detailed. We're very connected, and we love those family camping. And we do. I do energetically select right energies to bring in because I'm not like, oh, everybody just come. It's not for everybody. And it was so
Invites.
much fun because then we got to see the LARPers and all
Oh
these.
my God, that was so
I
cool.
know.
Yeah.
Everybody really loved that trip. And by the way, we're going to get that spot again. We're planning on it. So, yeah. And
Sweet.
so, but it's true. Like, it's really fun to socialize, come together. And my husband he's a homeschool dad, or we're a homeschool family. Like, he's not out working, crazy hours. Like, he gets to make his own times, and which is school times. And so he's with the kids a lot. He does a lot of the homeschooling, and people think it's always the mom that does it all. I was like, no, I was like, I call him the homeschool dad and give him props and credit
Yeah, he
for
does
it.
deserve
Yeah.
props. And I love that because your family unit is so tight, and you always have such beautiful experiences you're sharing. So it's motivational.
Yeah.
It's so
I try to
fun to
keep it
watch.
on Facebook. Yeah. Like you said, I post a lot because I think people need to know
Yes.
what homeschooling is about, whether it's unschooling or this kind of schooling or more rigid. It doesn't matter. But it's like we get to like build that. And I think we need to, I feel like you, Heidi, we're probably always the minority in many different areas from home birthing. I'm all
Mhm.
about like even, when people die, like even death at home, like it's like coming back to home, coming back to a sense of safety, not getting so caught up in systems. And that's really hard because we're all very entrenched in beliefs, and but we have to then wake up, right? I mean, that's what it is. And then question things, and then even create issues, create static electricity between
Mhm.
realities to go, okay, like I know for me, I have really hard no's in my heart. There's no going around that. Like, you know, not at all. Like, and I stand in deep conviction with what it is that feels right. And guess what? Nobody argues it with me. I don't have to create controversy. I feel like we need to live truly through our own awareness and connection to it. And we do need to question things. If things, I've had, more recently, I've questioned things with people. They're like, oh, I'm doing this for this. And I go, but why? Like, let's be curious and question things with just pure love and
Mhm.
free from judgment. We need to do that because there's going to be harder decisions to be made in the next years. And people have to really stand in the truth of who they are in it, no matter what.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's big. And I will create those women's groups, and we will sit together in that space because we have to maintain that that is a true frequency that we are allowed to elevate. And it's true. I love bringing women and children and families together. And I will be doing a women's retreat, hopefully into the fall, and more to hear about that because I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, we need to come. And that's another, again, entrepreneurial
Yeah.
energy. It's bringing
We
people
must be,
together.
yeah. You're a generator too. Maybe a manifesting
I don't
generator.
know. Yeah, you got to look me up. I
I
don't
gotta look
remember.
you up.
Look
But
me
like
up.
on that camping trip when we had that goddess circle and you invited all the teens and the
Yeah,
girls, all
that's
the
right.
girls came. That was
That's
so
right.
special. I'm like, yes, this should be normalized for children too.
Yes.
So That would be
There's a
cool.
way to do like I call it the mini goddesses, right?
Then you got
There's
it.
a way to bring in a G-rated experience and let them, and look how much fun the girls had. Like they
Hmm.
didn't even know it was going to be, and it's so, yeah, it's beautiful because I don't have a little girl. I gotta like, I need everybody else's little girl to make me feel like my little children are out there. My little females that are, yeah, that, and females for the future, like what will they become and how will they hold their own energy in these
Mm.
times?
Well, on that note, I can't wait to develop more with you, but also really work on that mentorship. I'm
Yeah.
Charlie's your first student.
We'll talk about that for sure.
Yeah.
I want to get it moving. I feel it in my heart like last year. But
Yeah.
I'm like you. I'm like, oh, is it still needing water or
Yeah.
sunlight?
Like
Yeah,
develop.
it's like
This
it's
is
still
going.
coming in, and like I'm not forcing it, right? This is a hard
Hmm.
one for us. But I'm
Hmm.
also going, oh, how is it going to unfold? Because as I see my son, who recently has shared, as I told you, some clairvoyant moments and
Uh-huh.
clairsentient, and being someone that is that, I could see it right away in people. But I'm not holding my children to be like that, right? And that's a really big deal. But when they start sharing stories with me,
Hmm.
and then I go, oh, like walking into areas of certain energy, walking into, haunted places, and then having an experience, that's
Hmm.
real. That's something happening between the energy and worlds within them. And I want to be very like open about that. It's like, well, what does that feel like? What's your story, without pushing, without
Sure.
feeling like my child has to be something. And that's a big deal too, because there are a
Yeah.
lot of children who have really deep stories and their parents are like, oh my gosh, my kid talks about aliens, or my kid talks about feeling people's energy, or my kid just said my grandpa's dead, or my kid just said grandma's cancer. And I'm like, yeah, because there's not just here, like, and that's the children I really want to encourage. It's like, it's okay, you're allowed to be you.
Yeah, lean
And
into that. Lean into it. And they
yeah,
need mentors to
yes,
support them while so they can lean into it. And so the
yes,
parents, in case they are freaking out a little bit, they can entrust the mentor to let their children develop naturally with the mentor safely in place. I
yes. And
think
see,
that's so
that's the thing,
important.
it's the safety. And
Yeah.
I have a containment in my groups that I have, that is really important to me. And even I did a grief circle last month, and I said it's really important for me in that grief space to, as we open it, we do embodiment, but also that we leave people grounded. So everybody's not like, and some, healers and therapists, they leave people ungrounded. That's not
Mhm.
cool. We have
Mhm.
to, like, because you don't want to traumatize people more. And so, I envision with children, yeah, sharing their story and connecting in a way that feels empowering to them, even if it's vulnerable. And I'll put it out here now in this pod, in this space, is that people can always reach out to me and hey, you know what, Kelly, I thought about my child's sensitive. What do you think? What's that connection? And some of my clients who do have children, they're in pregnancy or they're trying to conceive. Some of them do have older children or younger children, and I can read their children through them. I don't need to see the child. And then they're
Mhm.
like, Kelly, like, how do you know about this kid? And I don't offer that sometimes. Like, it really depends on the moment. It depends. I worked with sick infants because the parents really needed that support and listening to their soul, body, and energy. But I do feel like, I think it helps when I'm in that mentor circle that I can see this energy. And then what does that feel like, for us to then go, let's say with Charlie, it's like, hey, how are you feeling right now? And then I'm tuning and going, oh, I could see where energy is, but I'm not telling her yet until she tells me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. And then she's like, oh, I feel this. I'm like, yeah, I see that too. Like, what's that? Like, can we sit with that? And what is it's like using the body, but using the words and like putting it all together, or even, using the imagery. I feel like, it's everything that I didn't get, to be honest.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And that's a
Yeah.
big deal. And so, because our children want to be heard, and I know it was, for me, it was too scary to be heard because my parents felt very unavailable, and that's just their story. And
Mhm.
so for me, it was like I was the shy kid. I was the one hiding under my mom's leg. And I think more than anything, it was because I felt so much and I didn't have anyone to tell me what to do with it. And
Yeah.
so now I've always dreamed of like mentoring. Even I have many women that come, and when I pick them out of being an empath and how they feel in their body, they're like, oh my gosh, and they feel lonely. And so a
Hmm.
lot of people, I feel like we need community. This is why we come together. Is like we need, our children. And I love, again, the homeschool, like they're all hanging, like we hung out with you the other day and they're just kind of doing their thing, being children,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like connecting and trying to understand the world and with language, but there's still that, as you say, that star seed, that star energy, that light, and we have to, embody it in ourselves to remind them that's what
That's,
we're doing.
yeah, there's a lot of work right there. Yeah. But we can do it. And
We're
that's where the
doing it,
community.
Heidi.
We're
We are
doing
doing
it.
it.
Yeah.
We
And
are
then
doing it.
and that's the support and that's the finding the others. Well, I think this is a perfect time to just wrap it in a nice little bow. So,
Perfect.
Cal, I am truly honored that you came on to chat with me. I just love all the things you have to say. I think it's incredible to watch you as a mentor to me as a mother, watching how you mother. Like, it's a beautiful journey to watch and it's inspiring. So thank you for being open on social media and stuff and sharing your journey in that sense, because it's activated me. So
Mhm.
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me and, yeah, inviting me into your home, into your family. And it's been really
It's
an
a treat.
honor.
We have to do it more. And I know
I
we're in such an
know.
inconvenient areas.
We got to meet in the middle. How
Yeah,
about
so now
that?
we got to get our own little
Yeah.
track.
But it was fun. It was fun to make the trip. It was really nice. And we got to go down to see Reindeer Lane by you, which was so gorgeous. My husband's still talking about it.
Oh,
He's
cool.
like,
That
this is
was
the
a fun
best
one,
thing
wasn't it?
ever. So it was a treat,
Yeah,
to go, come sometimes taking a trip there is a treat. It's
that's
like a field
cool.
trip.
Yeah, yeah. Well, speaking of field trip, I'm excited to meet you at the beach when you start your marine stuff. Your marine, what
Yeah,
would
I
you call it?
know.
Marine biology kind of things or
We're gonna do
oceany,
ocean. Yeah,
ocean stuff?
there's so many things to do. I gotta pinpoint it. But
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, that's true. I can get you over here to come to the ocean, or you could
yeah.
come to my house and the kids could play in the creek and check it out. And
That would be so awesome. We'll share some little quips and pics on that.
absolutely.
Well, thank you again. And I forgot that we're even taping. So thank you to anybody who's watching us. And I really truly hope it resonated with you. Please feel free to reach out to Kelly or myself. And I'm honoring the human experience and how we're making our choices and our journey with motherhood and being a parent and raising our little star seeds and such. So if you feel like you would like to share, please hit me up. I would love to talk with you. And thank you again, Kelly. And I'll see you soon.
Thank you so much. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. My love to your family.